got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Bahrain goes on the inside. Foreman and Wallar, but Foreman's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Hello everyone, hello, welcome one and all to Premier Sim Gaming Leagues. Welcome back, it's good to be here. My camera is working this time and you may have to excuse the slightly messy setup behind me. I'm currently in the middle of moving house, but that's not important. What is important is tonight we get to the second round of PC F4. And the second round, unlike the calendar says, is actually going to Bahrain. So a decision was made between the drivers, between the race officials and everyone involved that we would, instead of going to Las Vegas due to some issues that were encountered with the circuit, things to do with, for example, a bit of RNG, track limits not being optimal for league racing, the change was made to go with Bahrain. That way it's a good compromise between what is acceptable for league racing, and we may return to Las Vegas. It's undecided whether we'll return in Las Vegas to the second half of the season, because keep in mind, round 6 to 11 are yet to be announced. They're yet to be confirmed. So while Bahrain is here for round 2 in its place, we may very well see it come in the later rounds. So just you wait. And we have got a lot to talk about, haven't we? We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of ideas, a lot of discussions that we can definitely have regarding some of the performances that we saw last time out in our opening round. So in fact, let's talk about that briefly for a second. We've got the standings here. We've got a few statistics from Brazil. Main thing to note is that Ryan Sprogis, brilliant driver. We heard from him in the interview. Looking to be gunning for the championship, second in quali, first in the race, which was later ratified through the stewards, and we've got a few steward reports to talk about as well. Lillian looked super strong throughout the race, but then sort of faltered at the last hurdle, dropping themselves down to 5th, later 4th place, as Kevin Ballas was knocked down the order after a penalty. And in fact, we can talk about that briefly now, as he did get 2 license points and 5 seconds on his race time for causing a collision on lap 2, as well as another 2 license points and 5 seconds for a little bit of the altercation that we saw between themselves and Lillian that caused Lillian to drop down to that 5th place in the final few laps of the race. It's almost getting boxed in. They got boxed in and didn't really make the best of the situation. So that is where we can see that they got a 5-second penalty on top of that. So 4 license points, 10 seconds down, they're going to find themselves being landed down in P5. Still a respectable position, but yeah, you know they're going to be gunning for better result this time round. Looking at the actual driver standings, you can see that we've already got a very clear list of who to keep an eye on, who's maybe sort of punching upwards. We saw quite a lot of upset in the mid-pack as well. A lot of upset in the mid-pack and a lot of fighting, I have to say. That race was certainly electric in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of who was bringing the heat, because we saw all sorts of battles, different strategies as well, especially on the tyre front, and that really kind of brought the hype and brought the chaos to the scene. You can see there, Riot Sprogis with 16 points, Milanmar with 12 points, and then Dimas with the 10 points. So that is going to be where we currently stand, first things first in the Grand Prix. And then looking at constructors as well, oddly enough, because of Ryard's brilliant performance, he's going to be landing himself top of the constructors as well. So with all of that chaos in the mid-pack, we do see a few sort of emergent teams. So the Red Bulls are looking very strong. McLaren are looking good as well, but I think Leo Lund, we can expect a bit higher of a performance today, because Bahrain has known to be one of the stronger circuits, I'd say. And then AlphaTauri P4, Aston P5, P6 goes to the Alpine, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alfa, and Williams coming down the order. In fact, Williams getting 0 points on the grid, as well as Alfa Romeo, because Aleda went all the way down to P13. And Aleda, we know, has pace. So I think they're another driver that we'll want to keep an eye on as we head into today's running in Bahrain. Let's take a look at the track itself before we get ourselves jumped in. So it's 3.36 miles, 15 corners, 3 key DRS zones, and I usually call them 2 because, for me, I'm not sure about you, chat, but I consider the 2 DRS zones coming through the start of the lap to be 1 in my head. At least that's what makes sense to me. So, regardless, 3 DRS zones. The key thing is that you're going to see a lot of people play a bit of DRS chicken heading into the first corner because they don't want to get the immediate retake coming out of turn 3, heading into turn 4. You're going to see a lot of people maybe try and get a little bit brave just coming out of turn 10 as well. Maybe try and get a little bit of an overtake before the start-finish straight and before the third sector opens up into a lot of higher speed corners. And we'll see what the drivers can bring in terms of showing us what they can do on this circuit. Show us their A-game, as it were. Because we have just a few minutes left until qualifying now. And with qualifying just a few minutes away, I want to know in the chat who you've got sort of pinned for... who you've got pinned to be a top runner in today's race. So we aren't going to be seeing... well, who we aren't going to be seeing is going to be Rayard Sprogis. We're not going to be seeing Andre Molnar, no Corneda Bakker, no Vincent Nyquist, no Ben Marples, and no Ryan Jacobs. So we've got a few reserves who are filling in, and a few drivers who are going to be jumping in to fill some spots where our mainstays have not been able to make it. For the other drivers on the grid, I see this as a key opportunity. If we go back to the standings, and we go back to our driver standings, Sprogis got a good early lead, which is great for him, but he's not going to be here to defend that lead in round 2. So for the other drivers on the grid, like Lillian, for example, who we both know has pace and will be hungry to get back some points after their mishap last time out, we know that they are going to be gunning for that top spot all the same, in the same way that the other drivers are. But we shall see in time who is going to be the driver who comes out on top. Time can only tell us so. It looks like we are just waiting for everyone to get into the lobby now. We got most of our drivers in, but we are still waiting on just a few more, and then we will be heading into the session. The main things to note for today's race, of course, to say Bahrain, it is going to be a little bit of a high speed one, and we're going to see a lot of DRS drag racing. Of course, remember, all the racing is going to be provisional results, because there might be stewards who come in and respond to any driver reports. So the driving is going to tell 90% of the story, but we may have some later decisions by stewards in the case of, like we saw, for example, with the race in Brazil, where Kevin Ballas got knocked down from a P2 finish down to P5 with penalties. So this is where we might see that happening. Of course, standard rules apply, so don't cross over the white lines, respect your track limits. And in particular, don't want any sort of extends or risky moves coming through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Because if you go off track in Sector 2, so turns 8 through 10, you've got to be careful when rejoining. Or should I probably more accurately say, from turn 5 onwards. If you come off as the track is sort of swinging left, right, and left, then you've got to be exceedingly careful where you rejoin. So if you come into the path of another car, that is serious penalties, and that could be a race ender. There we are. We are still, unfortunately, waiting on drivers to get into the lobby. And then we will be getting into the race. And into qualifying, I should say, more accurate. And yes, to answer that question, I am still here running solo. And we are in the process of finding co-coms. So let's see who we are missing. We have all the McLarens, the Alfa Romeos. We are missing a Red Bull. Looks like we are missing Ben Marples, but he said he was not going to be here. We are missing Alan Jacobs, who's not going to be here. And we are missing a couple of other drivers. Apologies for the wait, folks. We're just moments away. We have 14 out of 22 drivers ready to go. So having a couple of technical issues, and then we'll be right in. Just had a couple of technical issues on my end. Alright folks, so we are about to get into qualifying here. Apologies for the wait, we had a minor issue with the connection to the lobby. Let's just hope it's not a bit of deja vu than we had from the last time, eh? But let's see who is going to come out on top. As you can hear, the on-track announcements. It's time to go racing, and it's time to get into quali. We go, just joined in time for the start of the session. 17.5 minutes for drivers to go in and set their best times. And first out is going to be Jeremy in the AlphaTauri. That AT04, as slow as the real-life counterpart may be on track, it is a looker, in my opinion. It is quite the looker. See a few drivers keep an eye on. Say Jeremy, you've got a letter coming out, I think just now. Sven Schumacher is also here, just a little bit further back. Be another driver who we've seen good performance from. So Marek, who got involved with an incident prior in the last race, I think with Kevin Ballas. So we'll hopefully see some good pace from them. And then Simone Biolo, who's sort of on the back of this initial queue. Who I got a couple people in chat saying is going to take the dub today. Well, let's see what all these drivers can do. First quali runs, just a minute or so away. I think seeing as he's in the front of the queue, we'll hop on board with Jeremy. And we'll see what he can do. First thing, let's see our first quali lap here in Bahrain. Let's do this. So, right out the gate, really sort of pushing. You can see him taking a very wide exit to get as much speed as he can. 203 miles an hour heading into the first corner. So he's still keeping the throttle on to some degree all the way. Really sort of pushing the car around, working those dips. See, full DRS open as we exceed 180, 190 miles an hour. Coming through turn 3, heading to turn 4 now. Nicely done. Good line. Really pushing the edge of the track limits there. And now it's all about setting up your car, picking the right time to commit to the corner. So far, so clean. Second sector now for Jeremy. He got heading out of the way of other drivers. I think that's the McLaren of Leo Lund there. So good sportsmanship shown, staying out of the way of a quali runner. Yeah, it's a good second sector. It's a 106.2. See, hopping back on board here. You've managed to get a good job pinning down the initial runs here. Now Jeremy sort of telling it back, say very careful on the last corner. You don't want to get track limits violation and invalidate your lap. To 127.9. Can anyone match? Nicola Aleda is just behind. He got the track limits violation. He is not going to be setting a new time. Looks like Silly Sly Guy is going to be next up. It's a 128.6. He's not going to touch. Simone is going to be a 127.8. Is Sven Schumacher going to be throwing anything in? Yes, he is. 127.7. And that is the time racking down the sheets. And it's looking very good there for our first initial runners. We've got Alexander Dimas about to cross the line here. What's he going to be getting? It's a 128.001. It's going to be good enough for P4. With Marek coming across the line, 128 is single millisecond behind Alexander Dimas. Oh, wow. You don't see these gaps very often, if at all. A single millisecond splits the Red Bull and the Alpine. Don't think I've seen it. And then you got Cordon with a 128.547, and that is going to round off our initial runners, I believe. You've got a few drivers who are coming through on out laps. So I think Lillian, in fact, is going to be finishing a lap here, just coming around the final corner. Very wide berth, and it's going to be a 127.5. Great job there, and proving that they do certainly still have the pace on tap. They are unshaken after their initial incident last time out. Leo Lund we're going to be hopping on board with here, as he is going to be the next one to come across the line and finish a lap. Is it going to be a good run? Coming across the line, it's going to be good. It's going to be close. It's a 127.7, 12 milliseconds ahead of Sven Schumacher. That's second fastest in the session. Even Santa Maria is also going to be one of those last ones to set a time here, as you've got a couple more who are coming through. So Zemek is going to be a 128.4, and I believe that is it for the moment. I believe Nicola Aleda is on an outlap right now. They are not going to be going for a run, and you've got a few drivers who are in the process of heading to the pits. So Initial runs looking very promising for the AlphaTauri, very promising for Leo Lund. We're seeing that pace that we know they have on tap here. Sven and Simone also looking very, very strong. So a few drivers who have left to set their time. We've got, of course, Nicola Leda, who are on board with. We've got Ivan Santamaria, who I believe is about to cross the line here. What's he going to be getting? It's a 127.9. That's good enough for 5th fastest. And that's going to be putting him right next to his teammate. Noel Carman is going to be another one who are waiting on, but they have got track limits violation. They are not going to be setting a run this lap out. Nicola Aleda is going to be starting one, however, so we're going to stick on board with them for the time being as everyone else heads back into the pits. And let's see what this Alfa Romeo can do. We are the same speed. Oh, a little bit deep in the corner, though. Doesn't quite manage to hit the apex. That is going to be a little bit more difficult to get your time that you need on that one then. So turn 3, very nice. Can they set up the apex to turn 4? Look, they're very aggressive on the brakes that I've noticed. Very aggressive on the brakes. Maybe throwing the balance of the car just a tiny bit. So saw the apex on turn 1. They have reined it in, though. It does look like good lines through the rest of the second sector so far. See? Very difficult complex, that is, I'd say. Just as you're going through the downhill, you keep the wide apex, but then still hang it into the inside for the turn 10. And really sort of full power. You're gunning it out of the second sector. 106.4. Decent second sector time, but it's a couple of tenths off our pole sitters. I believe our record is a 106.1 timestamp through the end of sector 2. Okay, final corner now. It all lands on this. All very sketchy on the curves. Nearly looks like they overdid it, but they are going to keep it within track limits. It's a 128.1, and that is good enough for P9. So sort of squarely in the middle of the field. I'd say you need to be in the 127s if you want to be in a good position. So we've got Milan Meyer, who is about to start a lap as well now. So let's see how they can do. Now remember to say the use of slipstream is prohibited in PSGL. So even if they are teammates, you cannot reap that kind of advantage. So they may be coming up behind Leo Lund, but they've got to be very careful to stay out of each other's way. And you can see there Leo Lund peeling into the inside, getting out of the way of his teammate, saying, nope, we are not risking this today. No, thank you, good sir. He is on an outlap as well, so no point in potentially putting yourself up to steward scrutiny. And Milan Meyer doesn't look like he needs it, as he's keeping otherwise a fairly clean run through the sector, although a little bit shaky on the exit of turn 9. There you go. Straight shot down this center straight here. So almost 190 miles an hour, maybe a little bit more aggressive on the wings compared to their competitors. They try and nail the twistier parts of the circuit. What's the timestamp? It's going to be 106.5, so again, a little bit behind where we're expecting of pole sitters here. It is a little bit behind. Question is, can they convert it in Sector 3? Or it's going to be very risky. You saw just there, even my voice cracked a little bit because it's so close to the edge of the track limits. 128.3, not the best time, but it's still good enough for P10 so far. Yeah, we're going to hop on board here with Sven Schumacher. As you can see that they are on a run. They're going to be trying to improve on their 127.777 that they set last time out. In fact, no, looks like they're going to be abandoning due to traffic and heading back into the pit lane. So never mind that at all. We've got a few drivers who are looking to get a run in. Leoland just started a run. Billy Sly guy starting a run here, as well as the Haas of Cordon. So everyone's going to start their runs. And this is where we see the sort of big fly-through of everyone trying to get their chance, trying to get their good laps in. Time will only tell how these drivers do with this, what otherwise a kind of sparse grid. The Bemek 128.4. Forgive me, I'm completely butchering that name. I'm probably pronouncing it differently every time I say it. But certainly a driver that we want to keep an eye on. You can see Noel Carman just a little bit further up the road, who is going to be one who has yet to set their time, the only one yet to set their time. And you can see here Lillian is on a lap. Their teammate Jeremy is going to peel out of the way as they got a little bit closer in proximity. Are we going to see an improvement from the current pole sitter? He's so close to the edge of the track limits there. And you can see coming across the line, it's going to be a 127.3. So that is another 2 temps chipped off the board. Great job there from Lillian. Noel Carman's going to set a time. It's good enough for P6, 6th fastest. Fremek is going to be in P11. And you can see that Jeremy is heading into the pits there as we have a few positional changes. P13 goes to Silly Sly Guy. Is Dimas going to get an improvement as they come across 8 milliseconds but through sector 2, but they do pull it back. It's going to be by 5th place, 5th fastest, coming through in the leaderboards. Unfortunately, cannot see because of the masses of cautions how much time we actually have left. I believe that's Simone coming into the pits now. Yes, they are. So 5 minutes left. It's going to be setting up for a final run from these drivers as everyone's sort of peeling back in now. See both Alfa Romeos on their outlaps, and a few other drivers potentially going for mainline runs. Leder's going to be starting one. I do find it interesting, though, almost the cadence of people choosing to set their times, especially the Alfa Romeos, as they both seem to be going out right when everyone else is pitting. Now, while this does let them some clean air, and they don't have to worry too much about on-track traffic, this does mean with the cadence they've set up, they're going to miss out on a final run. So realistically, unless they are like speeding bullets through the pit lane, this could be their last run here on track for both Alfa Romeos. So let's stay extra focused on the likes of Aleda and Schumacher as we come through the second sector here, turn 8. Looking quite smooth through. Good to see in the chat. Good to see in the chat, Jess. How was Silverstone and commentating on Formula Student? Here we go now. Aleda. Looking fairly clean. 191 miles an hour coming through the second DRS zone. And, oh, he loses the rear. Oh, that is not looking good for Aleda. He had it, but just a little bit too much on the throttle. And now he's going to be limping up. Just stays out the way of his teammate, Ben Schumacher. But yeah, that is definitely going to be his quali run over. But if he gets into the pits fast and back out, he could have one more go. Now that he's effectively broken that cycle. But his teammate, can he carry the torch? P4 has got 127.765 to beat to get into those top 3 spots. He is going to do it, and he's going to do one better. 127.5, that is second fastest. That's good enough for front row. And just in time, almost as if on cue, you've got a few different drivers who are coming out the pits now. And Leo Lund is going to be leading the final queue for the final runs of this quali. But we're seeing such tight margins. I mean, look at P11 through to P13, for instance. Themic, Cordon, and Silly Sly Guy are separated by just 15 milliseconds. So the margins are so ridiculously tight. And then between Noel Carman and Jeremy, 4 milliseconds. So these drivers are not messing around. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Hey, let us know in the chat who you think is going to be getting pole. Could be writing on the wall, could be Lillian getting it, but at the same time, I don't think Simone or Leo Lund are down for the count by any stretch just yet. I think it is safe to say, however, that for Sven, and you can see by the speed that they're going, they know that their quali is over, and the best that they're going to get in this scenario is P2. So really all they can do is hope that no one else gets an improvement, because they're not going to have enough time to get back out on track. Let's hop aboard with Simone here. We had a few people who were praying for Simone to get the dub here, and you can see Sven retiring from the session, almost acknowledging that his quali is sort of done for now. Might as well take a brief second to rest. We're going to stick on board with Simone here and see how he can do in this AMR 23. Oh, sliding the rear a little bit. We have seen a little bit of discussion regarding sliding the rear and whether it's faster in F1 23 and certain corners. Looks like Simone is applying that technique. I guess we'll have to see with the timing stamps for the different sectors whether that is a successful endeavor. And it seems to be slightly slower than his sector best. Now coming on strong through the second sector now. It's like a good entry through turn 10. Full speed down the middle straight. What kind of speeds are we expecting to hit? So we go into 8th gear, 190 miles an hour, so not the fastest, but not the slowest either. You see, really trying to hang it to the edge of the track limits. Just maximize your lines. That's 3 milliseconds faster than his best second. So as the flag falls, this is the last run from everyone, folks. This is do or die time for all of these drivers. Final corner here from Simone Violo. Is it going to be enough? Right to the edge of turn 15. He's going to be giving it everything he has. Is it going to be an improvement? It is going to be an improvement, but it's not enough to leapfrog Sven Schumacher. Is going to be in 3rd position. Leo Lund is going to be next one to take a stab at it. I think, though, he has abandoned his lap, and you can see by the sort of inside line that he took that I don't think it's going to be a winner. There you go. He's heading into the pits now. This is not his day. Marek is going to be coming across the line, however. Is it an improvement? Yes, but again, not enough for a position change as Zemek heads into the pits. You've got a few different drivers. Jeremy is going to be jumping into P4 there, as Dimas is going to be staying in P6. Now we've got Cordon coming over. It's going to be an improvement again, enough for P10. And Milan Maya is going to be hopping into 9th position. There's a close run from all of these drivers, but say very close indeed. And Silly Sly Guy, massive leapfrog, jumping up to P7 as Nicola Aleda lines up behind him in P8. Santa Maria is going to be heading into the pits. Noel Carmen as well, going to be coming across the line. Is it an improvement? Yes, but again, no positions changed as Lillian is going to be heading into the pits, not needing any more encouragement than that. And that, folks, is your quali session. Lillian just dominating out here in the second half of quali. So almost 2/10 clear of Sven Schumacher, and that was after improvements. So brilliant job. Brilliant work, well done there. So Sven, Simone, and Lillian. And you can see here the timing board. So with almost 2/10 to their name, as we said, Lillian is going to take pole position alongside Sven Schumacher on the front row. Simone and Jeremy line up in row 2 with Leo Lund and Alexander Dimas in row 3. Silly Sly Guy and Noel Carmen is going to be P7, P8. Nicola Aleda and even Santa Maria are going to be P9 and 10. And then you can see Milan Maya, Marek Zmarowski, Cordon, and then Zemek is going to be in P14, bottom of the rung. And we'll be back with you right after this short ad break from our sponsor. All right, folks, so just as a reminder before we get back into the racing itself, a reminder of our driver standings. Ryan Sprogus is not here to defend his title bid in the moment, so it's looking like the likes of Lilian Dimas and looks like particularly London Sven Schumacher could be jumping up the grid. So we'll see what they can do, of course. We'll see what they can bring to the table. And I am certainly excited to see what this race can cook up. But let us know in the chat who you're praying and who you're rooting for in the chat as to who you think is going to come out on top. But here we go, folks. This is where we decide and where we really start to see who is going to be coming out on top. So here we go. As the timing tower lights up, it's 5 red lights. The track is hot. And we are away, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to go racing. It's a good getaway from Sven Schumacher and Simone as well. As you can see, Jeremy sort of trading to the other side. Lilian is going to be, in fact, caught on the outside as Sven Schumacher making a really good start and going to be jumping ahead of the AlphaTauri here. You've got a few drivers who are also trading positions in the further back of the field. You can see Premik has jumped up Cordon and a little bit of contact. Oh, that's a big slide coming from Marek there. And you can see that a little bit of the mid-pack is getting a little bit spicy. Let's jump aboard with Noel Carmen briefly and see what's going on. Bit of a frontward view as everyone is jostling for the position. And the two AlphaTauris, in fact, are kind of fighting for space with one another. Lilian's dropped down to P3. Simone has leapfrogged the two of them. And you can see Jeremy really getting a little bit closer in close quarters with Leo Lans there. So Milan Meyer has dropped right back down to the field also. So everyone is looking like they are giving it their all right now. Looks like mostly everyone is on the hard as well. If we can just quickly jump in and see that, oh, Cordon is going to also be getting a corner cutting penalty, which is very bizarre, as I believe they actually went outside the track limits, but of course I guess the stewards may review that one too. But yeah, everyone jumping on the hard tyre, with the exception of Nicola Aleda. And you can see he's going to be putting that medium advantage to the test right away as he's making a move on Alexander Dimas down here through the inside. He's going to really be pushing the limit and really trying to get those medium tyres worked, because he needs to use that advantage while he has it. Zemek's going to be heading into the pits and coming out on soft, so I believe they may have had an altercation with another driver that kept them down the back of the field. So maybe they're going to go for fastest lap early on and get a little bit of damage reduction. We'll have to wait and see. Damage control is a pretty important part, so if you can even lock away that single point, then that could be a big sway in your championship fight. But I do want to keep my eye on Nicola Aleda, because he is kind of the black sheep of this group so far. He's stuck in the middle of it. He's got a fairly hefty gap to catch up to the likes of Jeremy, but he is also on a different tyre. Once that medium wears out and he gets onto the pit lane earlier than everyone else, we'll really see how well this alternate strategy is going for him. I see Silly Sly Guy also going for a potential move, or at least angling up a option to go for a move at some point. You see, almost like a conga line, all of these rapid machines are filing down turn 14-15 of the Bahrain circuit. Could see Leo Lons going for a potential move here. Simone getting the fastest lap of the session so far. Milan Meyer immediately toppling that. Is Leo going to go for a move here? Yes, he is. He's going to be firing it down the inside of turn 1. He's going to be locking in any kind of space he can get. A little bit of touching of the side pod of that AT04. And Leo is going to be getting the DRS, but DRS is now enabled for everyone. And these first opening laps were really crucial for some of these guys. Cordon was also going to be heading into the pits and coming out on mediums. So I wonder if they maybe had a little bit of an altercation as well. One thing is for sure, however, Simone is absolutely running away in terms of space right now. He does not need to worry one bit about the space and about the pressure of drivers. Yeah, of course, he's still going to have to drive hard and drive fair, but he's got nearly a second, and if he can break that to a single second, then he could potentially really make a good getaway in these early laps of the race. It's just that crucial last tenth is going to be so difficult to break. Because as long as they're within a second, they have the DRS, and they're going to have a little bit of slipstream to boot as well. Just don't overdo it on track limits either. But another fastest lap on the board is looking like a very good sign. And even with Sven closing the gap, it's going to be a very difficult upwards fight. Gonna hop on board with Jeremy quickly, as he's kind of stuck between a rock and a medium place, with Leo Lund up ahead, who's trying to keep the tail on, and then Nicola Aleda behind on the medium tyre, who's trying to close the gap. As far as the rest of the pack, they've mostly stabilised. We have seen a lot of jumps up and down, already a few drivers taking pit stops. And time will only tell who is playing the long game versus just trying to get ahead now. We also look back and say, person who is giving Aleda a little bit of trouble is going to be Alexander Dimas over here. Proven entity from prior seasons. We know they've got the pace on tap, and on their day, when they link it all together, a pretty strong force on the circuit. And it seems to me like they are putting a lot of pressure down on Aleda and making sure that he can't breathe easy, even if he has got a grip advantage. Everyone looking fairly strong, fairly equal. So we turn our attention to things like battery usage. This is where the macro strategy of the race tends to play out, I'd say. Because if you've got drivers, and speaking of drivers, Leo Lund going for a little bit of a Leo lunge through turn 1. It doesn't connect, it doesn't turn into a viable move. But we also can see that he's putting the pressure on Lillian right out the gate. This front pack is starting to heat up because you've also got Sven, who is putting pressure on Simone and has closed that gap thanks to DRS. You can see Simone going for those defensive lines too. And Leo is going to try and get a bit of a switch back on Lillian here. They are going to be fighting for space. Lillian's having to go on a defensive line just to keep them at bay. But Lund is kind of sandwiched here, so maybe there could be a little bit of team play involved. Depends on what terms the two AlphaTauri drivers are on. Do wonder though, as time draws closer, the gap draws closer. No longer is he 9/10, but only 4. Sven Schumacher is within striking distance of Simone Biot. So who is going to prevail here? It's got Sven, who's trying to give it everything, and you can see he is giving it everything down the straight. Is going to be a move being made. Is it going to be a full commit? I think Simone is going to be letting him go for the moment. As you can see here, they're both on relatively even keel, but here's the kicker. You could see a little bit of a switchback, but it's not going to be enough through the second DRS zone here. Technically the first. It's not going to be enough, but that is Sven Schumacher taking lead of the race, at least for now. It's a great battle being had at the front of the grid. And that sliding technique, I do wonder just how much faster it is. It looks surreal from the cockpit cam, how the car seems to almost skate around certain corners, certain lower speed corners. It does feel semi-surreal, at least looking from the cockpit cam, as to what that car is able to achieve with that extra sliding. I know that it's certainly been a hot topic of debate in the F1 community. Here we go. Simone is looking to get a bit of a counter-attack going. You can see him getting very close to Sven. Question is he going to commit, or is he going to be going for a more strategic move here? Just remember, he's got to be behind by the detection point if he wants to get that second spell of DRS. He is going to pass the detection point and be behind, but he is still going to go for the attack through turn 1. Now, if he can commit, if he can make this work, he's got the DRS and he's got the lead, and he is going to confirm said lead with that crucial move, and Lillian is going to be also capitalizing on this scuffle as well. He's alongside Sven Schumacher, and they're going to be fighting through the second sector. Is he going to have the space? Not quite. He's going to be having to go back into P3 for now. You can see moves left, right, and center. Nicola Aleda is also starting to poise themselves to go for a few attacks. Doesn't look like they're materializing just yet. And in fact, looks like a little bit of contact being made by a few as we get a bit of a concertina effect. You can see just behind Noel Carmen, going to be going around the outside of Silly Sly Guy. It's not going to convert into a move, but they're going to be putting the pressure. Oh, big slip from the Williams there. And Noel Carmen also getting stuck behind as well. The mid-pack certainly heating up too. As we return our eyes to the front, we can maybe hop on board from Lillian's POV. As we can see that once again, we are going to have a trade of places for the top. Sven's going to retake his position from a couple laps prior into first place. But is he going to let it stay? Because he was ahead at detection point. So I think Simone is going to have DRS. Is the DRS going to be enough for the Aston Martin driver as we come down to turn 4? Big scuffle in the mid-pack as well. And you can see that there is contact being made by, I'm not sure who that was. Oh, getting very shaky between these four. Carmen, Meyer, Zamorowski. In fact, that is Marek off the track completely, and he's having to recover to come back on. So that four-way scuffle did not end well for the Alpine driver. Not by any stretch. And in fact, now, you look at the timing gaps, Silly Sly Guy is now nearly 2 seconds behind Alexander Dimas. So there is definitely going to be 2 trains of racing forming rather than 1. So those slips, those scuffles, and you can even see him coming out of the second sector that he's struggling with that high-speed control on the throttle, I think. A little bit of a weakness that I'm starting to pick up on with Silly Sly Guy. Is not so smooth on the throttle front. But we return to from whence we came many times before. As you see, a big shot, a straight shot. And you can see Leo Lund is also coming in there. Bit of contact again, bit of bumping tyres from the McLaren, firing it through turn 1. He's going to have to go off track, and he's going to be... And in fact, we jump over to Lillian, who's kind of dropped down in all of this. Nicola Leda's going to be siphoning through. Oh, big incident coming from the likes of Aleda, who went back into Leo Lund, who then had no choice but to go into Sven Schumacher. And Sven Schumacher is now the way down in P10, defending against Milan Meyer. So what did look like such a close race for the Alfa Romeo is now looking like a much more dismal affair thanks to that incident. I'm sure stewards are going to be scrutinizing that one fairly heavily. That's gotta hurt. I know he's going to be absolutely seething in that cockpit, but he can't let his temper get the best of him. He needs to recompose, focus on the race, because you never know what could happen. A safety car could come out for all we know. Of course, time will tell how this race plays out. They could certainly get some strategic moves back in on a couple of places. Just need to play their cards right. And you can see Jeremy is in fact going to be hitting with a penalty for track limits here. And that's going to be the first penalty of the race session. Leo Lund is going to be jumping up into P2 as well. I'm surprised he hasn't got rear damage from the contact with Aleda. He seems to be doing just fine. Jeremy is going to get the DRS, as is his teammate. But does not look like any move conversions. In fact, I wonder if we're going to see the AlphaTauris trade places knowing that Jeremy has a penalty. Remember, it would be showing up for all of the racers' HUDs who are nearby. Stop a ball with Alexander Dimas here. And we can see that they have been the thorn in Aleda's side since really lap 1. They've continued to put the pressure on them. They've continued to be a difficult opponent to race against. Even when they are on a compound slower, they have continued to pressure and really make it a difficult race for Aleda here, so that they cannot rest on their laurels for a second. They're having to really push those mediums in order to stay ahead of the Red Bull, because they've got no DRS to help them here, or at least they're on the very verge of being able to use the DRS. See a little bit of a trade further down the grid between the likes of Carmen and with Sven Schumacher here. You can see going side by side. And Milan Maya is going to be joining the fray here. Let's see what's it going to do. It's going to be a drag race. Sven Schumacher is going to be overtaken by both the Mercedes and the McLaren. Is Milan Maya going to fully commit to the inside? He's going to be sticking his nose in. He's going to be staying there alongside through turn 1. It's going to be almost getting it. It looks like it. They're almost getting a little bit too close for comfort. And with Milan Maya also getting the DRS, this is going to be a strong move for both the Alfa Romeo and the McLaren. Noel Carmen's down to P11. And we can see that Premic is going to be the second driver to get hit with a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Looking at the AlphaTauris again, we can just see that Lillian is starting to get a little bit antsy and a little bit annoyed, I'd say. You can tell from their driving to an extent. The fact they're stuck behind Jeremy. I get the feeling that they want to be chasing down Lund. And then Marek is going to be the third driver to get a penalty for track limits out on the grid. It's a shame with the lights on this game that they tend to just create a bit of a grey haze. It's a little bit frustrating when it comes to seeing the action. We can't really use some of the cinematic cameras. Like this one, for instance. We cannot see anything, which is really frustrating. But there you go, you can see the AlphaTauris are jumping and swapping places with one another. Jeremy is going to yield and get on the brakes slightly early to allow their teammate to get by. And being behind Leo Lund as well means they are going to get the DRS. Now, the job of these top drivers now is going to be to try and close the gap to Simone. If I was Simone here, I would want to stay out for as long as I can. As you can see, Noel Carmen and Marek are going to both be heading into the pits for mediums and softs respectively. I do find it an interesting strategy going for the softs so early on this track. You can see Premic is going to be heading onto the mediums now. I think in an attempt to serve... well, can you even? But certainly jumping onto the mediums, I think using up the mileage on the softs. Which is why I do, again, think it's a little bit of an interesting move going for that compound in such conditions. Looking around the grid, it looks like a fairly stable race and a tale of two races for some. So we've got Simone currently in the lead with about a second gap to Leo Lund, with Lillian and Jeremy, the two AlphaTauris, looking very strong in third and fourth. Nicola Aleda takes P5, but being on the mediums from the start of the race, they're going to have to swap over at some point soon and earlier than the hard runners. Sixth goes to Alexander Dimas, even Santa Maria going to be in P7. Silly Sly Guy about 1.5 seconds behind, and then Milan Maya about 3 seconds. So this is where we see the grid really fan out, with Sven Schumacher in P10, Carmen in P11 having just pitted, Marek, Premic, and then Cordon down at the bottom of the field, which isn't a space that I'd expect to see Cordon in, because I've seen them in prior seasons having the pace to be up with the best of them. So definitely a race to forget for the Haas driver in this case. Helping them aboard with Lillian, just as they have a little bit of a wiggle through turn 7. A little bit of a stressful wiggle there. Carmen and Marek are going to be trading places down the back of the grid, but eyes are up here right now. In fact, again, you see a little bit of that sliding coming from the AT04. To those probably more mechanically adept, we'll say, than I am at this game, I'd love to hear what it's like to use the traditional driving technique versus sliding the rear. Like, is it faster? Is it easy to control? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Love to get that discussion going. But as we keep our eyes to the front of the grid for now, Leo is very much closing in on the Aston Martin. That gap has waned dramatically, but I think it might have been an expense of his resources. He's only 15% on the battery, whereas Simone is on 30. And Aleda is going to be heading into the pits after 13 laps of medium running, I assume to go on the hard. We keep our eyes on Leo Lund for the time being. As we now wonder, are they going to pit? They've been fairly aggressive on the overtakes, and in particular, firing it down the inside of turn 1. We've seen them do that a couple times. I just wonder if that aggression is going to translate to the rest of the circuit when going for moves. But they cannot be too aggressive is the problem. Marek is going to set the fastest lap, so a bit of damage control there. Again, points prevention like we talked about at the start of the race. But my question is this: how aggressive is Leo Lund going to be? If he overdoes it, there is an AlphaTauri right there waiting to take that P2 spot, practically chomping at the bit for it. So if they overdo it on their attack and they fail to get the position off Simone, they could lead themselves in deep trouble. So as we come to the halfway point in the race, we're going to start to see some drivers maybe think about pitting in. Simone really is the one that has control over who pits when. Because as the leader of the race, when you pit, everyone does. It practically is having full control of the cadence of the race. You can see that Jeremy is going to be peeling off into the pits, so I think maybe we're starting to see that inflection point. We're going to see Leo is going to be firing it in the inside of turn 1 in a fairly traditional move that we've seen from them by this point. They are going to be getting ahead and getting a good run on Simone to boot. Now, is Simone going to be able to respond? No, because he's not going to have the DRS, and he doesn't want to burn that precious battery. He's got it at 30% right now, and looks like he has it locked down pretty stable at that amount too. So it looks like Marek, and has Marek retired in the pit lane? Yes, he has. So that is going to be our first retirement of the session, folks. As we have a driver who is going to be dropping us down to 13 racers on the grid. Honestly, if I was Simone, I would play it safe here. I would use a little bit of ERS just to stay in contention, make sure Lillian doesn't get by. But I wouldn't overdo it on the resource usage. I'd use this time behind the McLaren, unless he goes into the pits, to preserve my battery, to maybe charge a little bit more using the DRS zones. And in fact, we can see there, never mind, that theory is being put to rest as now you've got Leo Lund and Simone both heading into the pits. Lillian is going to be staying out, though. Looks like they're going to be staying out for a while longer. I'm going to really try and capitalize on the open track, along with Silly Sly Guy and Milan Meyer, with Sven Schumacher coming through too. My question is, who is going to be coming out first? Looks like Leo has managed to stay ahead of Simone. And Jeremy, in fact, is going to be coming out with the lap earlier hit. They're going to be coming out ahead of both Simone and Leo. So that leapfrog strategy has worked out really well in Jeremy's favor. But he has still got 3 seconds of penalties. So, yes, it has worked out in their favor, but in the context of the race, I do wonder how much it is going to really make a difference. Premac is going to be getting 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, and usually, yep, there it is. If you get 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, that's usually your indicator that someone is about to retire, and we just saw that with Premac making it 12 on-track drivers. 2 retirements so far. Ferrari and the Alpine are out of the Bahrain Grand Prix here at PSGL F4. Interestingly, we have a little bit of a 2-race battle. So Lillian, we're going to stay on board with here. And I assume Milan Meyer, City Sly Guy, Sven Schumacher are also going to be coming into the pits. The question is, are they going to be coming out in time? Are they going to be coming out ahead? You can see Sven Schumacher going out for even longer, going up for another lap. But is Lillian going to be coming out ahead of the other drivers? That's the question. They're going to be a little bit slow on the uptake. Doesn't look like they're going to be coming out ahead of the rest of the field. You can see rejoining the grid, they're going to be right next to Alexander Dimas. So they have not timed this well. They're going to be coming out behind the likes of Leo Simone and also the others like Nicola Aleda, Ivan, and Alexander Dimas. It's not looking the best for Lillian right now, and they've got a lot of work to do. Sven Schumacher's the only driver, I believe, who has yet to take a pit stop here in this race. But looks like they have got a little bit of a pace problem as Jeremy is coming in very hot. I think they've overextended on the hards here. I think they may have overcooked it, because now they're going to be coming out well behind the pack, even more than they were previously. As you can see, 2 seconds off pace for themselves here. Big problem. Big problem. Not one you want to be having at this stage of the race, as Cordon is going to be a 3rd retirement. Is going to be heading into the pits and is going to make it 11 drivers. Just 11 drivers. Wow. Crazily enough, Sven is going to be going for another lap on the hard tyre. Very bizarre strategy. Really overextending those hards, in my opinion. So he's sticking on board with Leoland, so he's quite far ahead of his major rival, which is going to be Simone in this case. 1.5 seconds, but crucially, he is just on the cusp of DRS from Jeremy, who's the other main driver who needs to be on top. The AlphaTauris were both doing fairly well, but have Lillian all the way down in P8 here. If it's any silver lining, if it's any solace for these drivers, the fact that now we have 11 on the grid means that apart from last place, every driver is going to be walking away with points here. So I knew we did have a lot of absences this round, but for the drivers that have made it, that means that their probability of scoring points is nearly certain, provided that they're not facing the wrong way by lap 21. Hopping on board with Lillian then, as one of the drivers we've been keeping an eye on over the course of this race, and through last race as well, as one we were expecting to see near the front. Now, does look like they're closing in on Dimas here. They have got a full battery, which is going to be crucial in this scenario, as they can expend the resource to get away from the rest of the competition. As we just see there with Dimas with a great overtake, and a little bit of trading further up could be on the cards as well, as Jeremy is there, and Lillian in fact going twofold to try and make a bit of an attempt on Aleda, but with a little bit of contact there is going to deny such a motion. So a small request, folks, if we can keep it English in the chat, that would be lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, sticking on board with Lillian just for a second. As you can see, they're going to be going for a move on Aleda here down the inside through turn 8. Are they going to be fully committed to the move, though? That is the question we want to answer as they stick around the outside. Aleda is going to have the inside of this section through turn 10, and they are going to be having the DRS as well. So it does look like a move as good as confirmed. And Dimas, in fact, is going to be following suit as well. So great job there from the Red Bull, continuing to be a thorn in Aleda's side, and now making good on that pressure from earlier. Jumping to the front of the grid quickly, we have Leo Lund, who's right now on the heels, on the coattails of Jeremy, having made that gap just a quarter of a second. Sven Schumacher remains out on the hard tyre. My only guess is that they're going to be going for softs and they're going to be going for fastest lap. Beyond that, going on the hards for this long is a very risky strat. And you can see there, Jeremy kind of gets pincered through turn 1, and this could be not Leo Lund's chance. He's got the DRS, he in fact taps the rear of that AT04. This could be his chance here. Unfortunately, he does not manage to make it materialize in the time that it takes to get round Sven. So that window of opportunity unfortunately got foreclosed on. And he's going to be behind Jeremy for just a little bit longer. Sven, though, is making a very risky strategy. I think going for softs and onto the fastest lap. So it could be some good damage control. That fastest lap point could effectively leapfrog them over a couple races, but I have to question how effective and how viable that strategy is at this stage. Simone completely burned his battery and on the cusp of being a second away from Lund. Not sure if he's going to be able to keep that proximity. Time can only tell with this one. We jump up ahead, and we can see that both of these two are on identical battery. Alexander Dimas is going to be hitting a 3-second time penalty, so all that great work is going to dissolve, as Leo Lund is going to be jumping ahead of Jeremy here on track to retake that top spot, retake first position. And it's a good run there from the McLaren. Are they going to be able to keep it coming out of turn 3? The DRS is not going to be enough for Jeremy, as they can get close, but they are not going to touch that spot. You know, Dimas is going to be dropped back behind Aleda thanks to that 3-second penalty, but they stay ahead of Milan Meyer because there's 4 seconds between the two. As we jump to the back of the grid temporarily, we take a look at silly Sly Guy down in P9, doing a good job with that Williams thus far. They did have a little bit of an altercation earlier in the race, and I know the stewards are going to be scrutinizing some of these incidents that we've had with a keen eye. But it's trying to make the best of it. And it looks like Jeremy... Oh, something's happened to Jeremy. He's off track in the middle of the field. So I think he overdid it in the second sector, because now he's gone all the way down to P7. I'm really not sure what happened there. I think they just span it coming out of turn 11, which is really unfortunate there, but that is going to see them going all the way down to 7th and to net P9 once you factor in for penalty. But there you go. He's going to be heading into the pits. Question is that going to be a retirement, or is he going to be swapping to the softs for the fastest lap? I think it might be the latter, in all honesty. Interestingly, Sven, we talked earlier about Sven maybe overextending the hards to go on the softs, but no, he's in fact gone onto the mediums, which is quite a bizarre move from the Alfa Romeo driver. You would have thought with that amount of extend, you could get the softs to work for most of that time and reap the pace advantage, but that unfortunately does not seem to have been the play. And it does just look like now they overextended the hard tyres to now be 16.5 seconds behind Sly Guy in P8. We stick on board with Lillian for the moment, as it could be a case of fighting with Simone in just a second. Lund is going to be 1.3 seconds ahead, so Let's see how quickly this fight between these two is over with, because that could, of course, dictate whether Lund is going to face any competition or if he's going to be on smooth sailing all the way to the checkered flag. A little bit of a wiggle there from Lillian. Getting a little bit shaky. You see the recharge lights. That's Lillian's signal. It's time to go, 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 go. Down the spot. Finish straight. And a effortless move by the AlphaTauri up into P2. Very nicely done there. Now the work really begins. They've got 1.1 seconds to make up. They've got 7 laps to do it. Technically 6.5 by the time I finish this segment. And they have got a lot of an uphill climb to make. They have got a slight battery advantage, 20% to 50%. But that is only going to account for a few tenths to about half a second at most. So they are going to have to put in the drive of their life and become a tyre conservation god if they want to stand any chance. But they are within DRS detection range now. And you can see they've reaped the benefits. Oh, wait, hang on a second. Hang on a second. Leo Lund went off track. He went off track, and now he's got a 3-second penalty on top of being overtaken by Lillian. What just happened? This is the part where I complain once again about the grey haze, but Lillian having a big wiggle, having a little bit of a loss of grip. This has suddenly turned into a 3-way fight, folks. We've got Simone, we've got Lillian, we've got Leo Lund. It's almost 3 abreast coming into the final corner of lap 23. And this is where the drag race ensues between the 3 of them. I'm seeing a very similar situation to Kevin Ballas and those final laps. Lillian is probably seeing a bit of Groundhog Day, and they are having absolutely none of it. You can see they're right tight to the back of them here, and Lillian is going to potentially look to get a switchback on the McLaren here. See, gunning it early out of turn 2, turn 3 here. Both going to have the DRS. Leoland's going to be down the inside. Lillian, in fact, backing off, knowing that they do not want to be boxed in when these two start to fight. And this is where it really heats up. See, they're both biding their time, Lund and Lillian alike. Notice how there are points where they're lifting off the throttle. They're almost coasting the car, both trying to conserve tyres, conserve energy, and make sure that they don't get themselves into an incident, because they cannot be risky at this point. You have an acceptable level of risk as a racer, but you cannot overdo it. And switching over to Lund's POV of things, you can see that AlphaTauri is hot on the coattails of the MCL60. Looking like absolute weapons. These are drivers with purpose. These are drivers who have a very clear mission and are dead set on it. Oh, a little bit of oversteer there coming from Lillian. It is going to drop them a couple tenths, but it's not enough to lose range. I wonder if Leo is going to potentially get that penalty removed, depending on the nature of the incident. A little bit of oversteer from the McLaren as well. They are both going to be pushing within an inch of their lives. And you can see Lillian is going full beans. They're going full push. And they're both going to be going on the inside. Lillian is going to head down and brake early. Lund's almost going for a little bit of an overextend. Is going to get the P1, but are they going to be able to keep it? That is the question. As it looks like neither of them have got the DRS, which is very odd. They were both side by side. Neither of them deployed DRS through the first zone. But all of a sudden, this has turned into a chaotic 3-way battle for the win in the final few laps of the session. Lillian does have a small advantage in the fact that their tyres are a lap younger than Leo's and Simone's. But they are going to be biding their time, I think. They're going to be saving up their ERFs. They can't count on Leo with the 3-second penalty. Jeremy is going to get fastest lap, though. So it is going to be an extra point being brought home for the AlphaTauri team. But yeah, both of these two, Simone and Lillian, I think just bide their time. Ideally, you want to be in Simone's position with Lillian's battery. Fairly high on the tank, but also right behind the leader. Because they need to have, realistically, the move done by lap 28 so they can confirm it through lap 29. There you go. Aleda is going to get a 3-second time penalty. There's going to be a brief trader position further down the grid between Dimas and Santa Maria. There's going to be, again, another push for Rom Lillian, but they're not going to be fully committing to the move through turn 1. They seem to be very hesitant to fully commit to an overtake here. I wonder if that is a little bit of doubt creeping in, coming from their incident back at Interlagos. Simone seems much more aggressive, but Leo Lund, by far the most aggressive of these three up at the front, and that aggression has converted into positions here, as we can see. This is looking like a very tight fight for the top steps. Even Dimas could potentially get in on the action, but they also have got a 3-second penalty, so the certainty of that could be brought into question. Now, Leo, with the current positioning, if that 3 seconds stays, they will be landing in P5 after this, with Simone getting the win. I think Lillian can both operate and not operate on that circumstance. Let's see, saving the battery. Simone's also saving a battery a little bit, keeping it about the same at about 35 to 40%. And Leo is also trying to conserve a bit of battery, because remember, it's also a defensive tool as much as it is an offensive one. You can see Leo tries to break the slipstream a little bit alongside the DRS. And another move being attempted, or at least pressure being pushed, but no moves being fully committal from the AlphaTauri or the Aston Martin in this case. I think if I was in Leo's position, I would save whatever battery I can, knowing that I'm under constant threat, so that if anyone brings out any sketchy moves or any aggressive moves, I can be right there with the ERS to effectively counter whatever overtake that they are trying to pull. And I know that ERS cannot fully mitigate DRS, but if you have that on tap, you are much safer off. And I think that's Leo's play here. Simone and Lillian are both looking a little bit further away. The gap does seem to be closing, however. And this is certainly the place to be. I look behind, I see Dimas. I see that Red Bull and the AlphaTauri almost like looking, exchanging eyes and saying, no, this is my space. You're not coming here. You're not joining this podium spot. This is for mine to fight. I guess putting that constant pressure on is about to be playing into the AlphaTauri's favours. This is it. This is do or die time. It's an absolute send around the outside. They're heading into turn 1. Could they get both moves done? They got it around Simone. Are they going to get it around Leo as well? Yes, they are, but they're going to be slipping on the rear. They're not going to get the exit that they want coming out of turn 3. It's a drag race. It's going to be no DRS for either of them. And it's a 3 wide. It's 3 abreast. Simone's going to be in the outside. London's going to be the inside. No one is yielding. And this is a penultimate lap. It's absolute fire coming out of all of these top 3, top 4 drivers, I'd say, because Dimas is there too. Almost like a vulture, waiting for the scraps, seeing what's coming out of this massive altercation for the win here. But Lillian, that's up into P2 here. And about 3/10 stand between themselves and P1. You can see Leo trying to break the slipstream once again. Sector 2 warning. That is Carmen. What is going on with Carmen? Yeah, he's off the side of the track down in P11. I was really worried that he would be on the middle of the track. That could be a great disruption to our drivers. And you can continue to see it's a very defensive lines from Leo Lund here. They're trying to break the slipstream or whatever turn they can. They know that they are on the ropes. And in fact, they're going to be braking a little bit earlier. And Lillian is going to be getting ahead. A little bit of rearward slide. I think Leo is trying to play a little bit of DRS tactics. You can see there, yes, he's going to try and go for the DRS tactic strat. Brilliant job there from the McLaren. They both are going to be surging ahead. Simone and Leo Lund both going to be going for the move. It's 3 abreast into turn 1. This is it. This is the fight for these drivers' lives. And this is round 2. absolutely electric atmosphere. It's going to be a holy charge, like a crusade for these top runners. Lillian is going to be defending with all of their might, and this is where the saving of that battery, having that extra 30-40%, is really showing its strength, because Simone is trying to push. Leo tried to push. It was 3 abreast, and now we can see that they had just a little bit of the edge, but it is not done yet. We've got half a lap to go still. This could be anyone's game, as this battle has raged on for nearly 10 laps now. We're reaching its final conclusion. Simone and Leo both chasing down. I think they're both running out of juice, though. Simone's got no battery. Leo's got no battery. Lillian has still got 10%, and they have been using it over the course of this race and this lap to build up about a second's gap. This is it. It is done. To make up 9/10 is going to be nigh on impossible. And you see a brief move at the back from Dimas, but coming around the final corner, this is what it means to be a top driver in PSGL. And across the line, Lillian is going to take the win at the Bahrain Grand Prix for PCF4. Amazing job there. And as you can see, the other drivers filing through. Simone is going to, interestingly, I'm not sure what happened there with his connection. Seems to be DNF'd. He went from P2 to a DNF. I'm not sure what's happened there. But then Iban, Milan, Leo is going to be dropped down to P4. Dimas in P5. Aleda, Silly, and then Sven Schumacher in P8, P9. We'll wait to see what happens with Simone there, because I'm not sure what's gone on with Jeremy and Carmen. Both coming through now in P10 and P11. But wow, what a race. What a battle. And that was nearly 10 laps of hardcore contest. Is Simone in P2 or not? I am not sure. I'm going to wait for confirmation. I cannot say either way, unfortunately. I'm not sure if that's a bug or whether that was them DNFing before the end of the race and being demoted down. But regardless, Lillian, what a performance there today. And that was an electrifying battle right to the end. There you go, coming through onto the podium. And there we have it, folks. So there we are in first place with a brilliant race. Well fought right to the end. Lillian, with the brilliant strategy and management, is going to be taking that top spot. Ivan Santamaria is going to be in P2, or at least net P2. Depends on what happens with Simone. And Milan Meyer, Leo Lund, Dimas, Aleda, Schumacher, Jeremy, Sly Guy, Carmen, Cordon, Remick, and Marek going to be filing down the rest of the grid. That is your final standings, and that is where we see ourselves landing for round 2. Wow. All I can say is wow, honestly. Because that final battle between Lillian, Lund, and Simone, wow is really all I can say. And this is where we get to the interview section. So hopefully we get a chance to chat to our other drivers, or at least our winner. We'll hopefully see. We'll get a few minutes just to see if anyone joins the waiting room where we can get them over, have a bit of a chat, and see what their perspective was on today's race. Because it really was a brilliant race to be had. But there we go, folks. So I really hope you enjoyed our racing today. Really hope you enjoyed this round. In terms of where this leaves the drivers, we will definitely be seeing Lillian jumping up the places, potentially into first place in the championship after that performance. We could also see the likes of Santa Maria jumping up, Simone for sure. And then Leo Lund is also going to be taking a hefty jump up the standings. Of course, remember, this is all provisional, so we will have to wait and see if you want to know the full results and keep up with all the action. However, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the stream, and join the Discord as well, where you can get involved, chat with the community, and maybe get involved in some of the racing as well, because we might be having mid-season sign-ups. That's not confirmed, but it has happened in the past. And the PSGL is probably one of your best entry points into the world of F1 League racing. So it doesn't look like we are going to be able to chat to anyone from today's race, which is a little bit of a shame, but it has been absolutely brilliant to commentate for you tonight. Next round, we are going to be heading to the beautiful Silverstone. That is going to be progressing as normal. So definitely stay tuned, folks, as the championship is going to be heating up. That is for sure. I've been Sappy, aka Ben Sapsford. I've been your commentator. I'll be signing out for now. Take care, and we will see you next week for the British Grand Prix of PCF4.
Desperately trying to hang on. He's got the inside. Oh, here he's through on the left-hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the ghost is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.
Cocaine to my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine to my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine to my nose, got rose in